Dear friends, welcome to this week's virtual Drasha. This week we have the incredible privilege of Parshas Lecha. The Parsha begins with one of the most dramatic statements in the entire Torah, a statement that forever changed the trajectory of mankind. Hashem says to Avram, go, leave everything you know, your family, your land, everything familiar, and venture out into the unknown. Avram Avinu takes this courageous journey of faith, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, if you do so, number one, you will reap incredible personal benefit. But not only that, taking this courageous journey into the unknown will allow you to transform yourself, to transcend from Avram, the individual, into Avraham, the Av Hamon Goyim, the father of a multitude of nations. It is through this journey that Avram Avinu transforms from an individual personality, ultimately again into the father of the Jewish people, and the father, the truth is, of monotheism throughout the world. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes Avram Avinu a variety of different promises that are going to go ahead and come true. Some Avram will see, and some will only occur generations later. And Hashem says to Avram, this is Parak Yud Gimel, Pasuk Tezayin, chapter 13, verse 16. V'samti es zaracha ka'afar ha'aretz. I will literally go ahead and make your offspring like the dust of the earth. Asher im yuchal ish limnos es afar ha'aretz. If a person is able to count the particles of dust, Gam zaracha yimar, be able to count your offspring as well. It's interesting, Hashem tells Avram Avinu in two different ways. You'll have offspring like dust, you'll have offspring like sand, but the idea is the same. That it seems to me what Hashem is telling Avram Avinu is that the same way no one could count the particles of sand, no one could count the particles of dust, so too your offspring are going to be so numerous. And the question is obvious. Never in the history of the world have the Jews been so numerous. And the truth is, we don't even see that in our destiny, that we are going to be so numerous. So the bracha, the blessing that Hashem is conveying to Avram Avinu must have a different meaning. What is it that Hashem is trying to convey when He says you're going to be like the dust, you're going to be like the sand? And the Mefarshim and the commentaries go in many different directions. On the most basic level, the Sifri, the Medrash says, and I quote to you, he says, Afapi diba alma, dibra Torah lashon guzma. Sometimes Torah just speaks in hyperbole. Sometimes it's just hyperbole. Hashem's like, Avram Avinu, you're going to have so many descendants. Okay, so how does Hashem term so many? So many is like the dust of the earth, like the sand. Okay, but again, Medrash understanding that perhaps it's somewhat hyperbolic. Rashi, on the other hand, also understands Kishim shi efshar la'afar limnonos kach zaracha lo yimana. Rashi understands it literally. Rashi says the same way that people can't count the particles of sand, people also won't be able to count your offspring. The Medrash in Psikta Drasha explains so beautifully that rather it's a reference that just like there's sand and dust from one end of the earth to the other, Kach banecha misofa olam bi'ad sofo. So to Jewish people, the Klal Yisrael will be from one end of the earth to the other. That could be a geographic statement, or as Rav Hirsch really understands it, it's an impact statement. No other people, no other nation in the history of man has had an impact upon humanity like Klal Yisrael. We've been influencing the nations of the world from the beginning of time. So Rav Hirsch, Hashem Shal Farsh explains so beautifully, and Hashem tells Avram Avinu that your offspring is going to be like the dust, like the sand. Just like dust and sand is anywhere and everywhere, you can find it all over the earth, so too the influence of Klal Yisrael, the influence of Am Yisrael, the influence of us, the Jewish people, the Abrahamic descendants, will be felt from one end of the earth to the other. And again, many different Mefarshim, many different ideas, but this has been a question that's bothered me for years. And I think if we delve a little bit deeper, we can see something quite fascinating. Sand has many fascinating qualities. And again, even though the pasuk over here makes reference to dust, but Hashem also tells Avram Avinu, Kechol asher asasayim, he also says like sand. So we'll use them interchangeably. But when one looks at sand, sand has a number of fascinating qualities. Number one, there are many different types of sand. There's sand that's used for building. There's sand that's used for concrete. There's different types of sand that's used for mortar. And again, different colors, right? Different iron oxides, different colors, different consistencies. And Hashem is telling Avram Avinu, your children are going to be like the sand. The beauty of Klal Yisrael is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not want us to be the same. The same way that no two people look the same. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want us to be carbon copies of one another. He doesn't want us to try to be like one another. Obviously, a person should have role models and people really aspire to be like. But it's more like I admire the qualities of my role models and I want to try to emulate those qualities. But my avoda is to be me. My avoda is to be who I am, just like there are different types of sand. There are different types of Jews, and this message really has two facets to it. Number one, for each of us to embrace our individuality. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't create me and doesn't want me to be like someone else. He wants me to be the best version of me. Sometimes we make the mistake of comparing ourselves to others, measuring ourselves up against others. And while it's good to have role models, and while it's good to have people you look up to, the goal is never to become your role model. The goal may be to emulate certain qualities that your role model has. Each category of sand knows its place, has its purpose. Each of us has to discover our own unique individual identity. And on the other hand, we have to learn to embrace other Jews. Just like there are different types of sand. But again, sand all falls under one umbrella. So too, what it means to be part of Klal Yisrael is to embrace the differences, to acknowledge the differences, maybe even celebrate the differences, and recognize that we have never been the same. We will never be the same, because that's not what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us. There are different types of sand, and there are different types of Jews. Become the best version of yourself, and learn to love every other Jew as well. Number two, something interesting happens when you step down on sand or on dirt. Something fascinating happens, which is it compacts. The individual particles are compressed together and become firm, become strong. An incredible metaphor for Achdus within Klal Yisrael. When we are stepped on, when we are compressed, when pressure is applied to us, either through external enemies, tragedy, difficulty, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Avinu, watch what your children do. They don't splinter, they compact. They don't go in different directions, they come together. The power of our people and the way we are able to meet every single challenge and every single strain of adversity is because when we are stepped down, when we are pushed down, when we encounter difficulty, tragedy, or adversity, we compact. We come together, we grow closer. The power of Achdus, like the sand that is compacted when pressure is applied to it, Klal Yisrael compacts, comes together when there is pressure as well. Of course, the avodah of our people is to figure out how to have Achdus even when there's no pressure, even when there's no enemy, even when there's no external tragedy. Number three, what's interesting about sand and dirt is its ability to change form and shape. Right? Sand looks different ways. If the wind blows this way, the sand goes this way. Or if there's water, the sand goes like this. Sand is always changing form. Sand and dirt represent the ability to pivot or to adapt. Sand never remains a constant. It's always shifting based on what is happening around us. The power of the Jew, the greatest power of the Jew, is the power of the pivot. We have the ability to acclimate to anything. We have the ability to adapt to anything. This is true as a nation, and it's true as individuals. How often has it happened as a people that we faced circumstances that we thought signaled the end? How often has it happened as a people, as a nation, that overwhelming situations and overwhelming circumstances that we thought would bring us to our knees, and yet what did we do? We pivot, we adapted. And as individuals, so often in life we face overwhelming circumstances. Some of us, it's each and every day, and for others it's episodically, but it's for everyone at some point in time. There are winds that blow, there are forces that work against us. And as sand, we have the ability to adapt. As sand, we have the ability to pivot. The power of the pivot is the most powerful tool that the Jew has in his or her spiritual toolbox. No circumstance, no situation could ever break me, because I have the ability to adapt, I have the ability to pivot, I have the ability to mold and to meld myself to my new circumstances. Like the sand, I know how to pivot and I know how to adapt. And lastly, interestingly enough, sand, and this is, I think many of us find the ocean very mesmerizing like this. When you stand by the sand, right, you dig your feet into the sand and your footprints are so clear and they're so discernible. And then what happens? A wave comes and the water washes away everything. And when you look at that sand after the water has washed over, you can't tell that I was standing there 2 minutes ago. You can't tell that anything. In fact, it looks just as fresh as probably as the day that it was created. Water represents chesed. Water represents Torah. Water represents spirituality. A lot of times in life, our personalistic sand gets stepped on, gets trampled on, as we've spoken about before, and we've had to adapt, and we've been compacted. And there's scars. There are scars. As we go through life, we kind of rack up a collection of life injuries. They might be life injuries as a result of what other people have done to us, or life injuries as a result of circumstances that Hashem has visited upon us. And sometimes, like, my personalistic sand is like all pockmarked from all the difficult trials and tribulations of life. But here's what's incredible. If you surround yourself with the water of Torah, and you surround yourself with the water of chesed, becoming a selfless individual, giving to others, and you immerse yourself in the water of spirituality, of ruchnius, it has the ability to smooth and to soothe your personalistic sand. Ruchnius, spiritual growth, through, again, Torah, through chesed, through general spirituality, has the ability to steady us, has the ability to anchor us, has the ability to smooth out our turbulence, pockmarked sand as we go through life. Anchor yourself in a life of spirituality, and the beautiful translucent waters of Ruchnius will help to smooth out your personalistic sand. And so when HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avram Avinu that ultimately, again, your offspring will be like the sand by the sea or the dust of the earth, perhaps one day we will be that numerous, or perhaps it's hyperbolic. We certainly have had a more dramatic influence than any other nation on the face of the earth. But it could just very well be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was telling Avram Avinu, I want to tell you the 4 ways in which your children will constantly excel. Number 1, they embrace their individuality and embrace the individuality of everyone around them. Number 2, when we are trampled upon, we compact, we grow closer together, the particles come close together. The way we answer every adversity, difficulty, and tragedy is through achdus. Number 3, the power of the pivot and the power to adapt. Sand could do it, and so can we. And number 4, even when our personalistic sand is overwhelmed and pockmarked by so much difficulty, trials, tribulations, and tragedy, even when we feel overwhelmed by what's happened in life and we feel scarred and we feel broken and we feel overwhelmed, just like the sand by the shore, when the water washes over it, washes everything away. You can't wash away the stuff that has happened to you in life, but you can steady and anchor yourself. And with the water of Torah, with the water of chesed, with the water of spiritual growth, I could smooth out my personalistically challenged sand. I could take the sand that bears the marks of so much difficulty in life and use the waters of spirituality to smooth it and to steady it. This is the message that Hashem gave to our patriarch thousands of years ago. And it's the message which gives us chizuk to this very day. Wishing everyone a good night of Shabbos and a beautiful Shabbos Kodesh.